Alright, what's going on, guys? It's no surprise that Elden Ring has been one of the most successful and popular games to come out in a very long time. But if you're someone that's been playing a lot of modern AAA games, a lot of the games that seem to rise to the top of the charts in popularity, then you'll notice that there's something about Elden Ring that is much different. Aside from it being just an all-around amazing game, there's a core pillar and principle that the game builds itself off of that directly contradicts the paradigm of modern game development, and that fundamental design choice is delayed gratification. One of the quickest and easiest ways to get somebody sucked into a video game now is to create a stimulus overload. And what I mean by that is sending them so many signals to the brain that it creates a rapid procession of quick and fleeting shots of dopamine. It's one of the most effective marketing tactics, and this can be achieved in a number of ways. Typically, this is done through the use of bright colors, loud noises, and excessive prompts on the screen. And the game typically tries to front load these to get you that shot of dopamine as quickly as possible, in hopes that you'll spend more money on the game in order to achieve it again. We can see this in a real world example with casinos. They're intentionally made to be very bright, very loud, and overloading on your brain's stimuli, so that just by being there you get addicted to the feeling. But bringing this back to gaming, I'm sure we've all noticed the trend of games becoming more and more geared to satisfying instant gratification. And what I mean by that is the trend of eliminating the time and effort required to reach the reward, so that the player gets the feeling of satisfaction in the quickest and easiest way possible. But if that's such a foolproof way of getting people addicted to your game, why then are people loving Elden Ring so much? Well, let's talk about its reward system. As I said at the beginning, Elden Ring goes against the paradigm. It changes its reward system from instant gratification to delayed gratification. Instead of the rewards being front-loaded, it withholds them as much as possible. I mean, let's think about the beginning of the game for a second. The two first bosses that you come across are nearly impossible. The vast majority of players are not going to kill the grafted scion or the tree sentinel right after starting the game. It makes it well known to the player right at the beginning that in order to achieve the reward, they're gonna have to be patient. Their gratification is going to be delayed. But we can take this a step further. Even when the reward is achieved, the method of gratification is still fairly unstimulating. The words that pop up on the screen while they are noticeable aren't very intrusive, and are also brief. The items and the runes you get are withheld to the bottom right corner of the screen. Overall, it's not a very stimulus-heavy reward system. But the thing is, beating a boss in the Souls games feels a million times more satisfying than any of these other games I've played. So why does a game that goes out of its way to avoid creating the stimulus overload feel so much better? It's because the need for delayed gratification is a primal desire. This method of delivery to the player triggers something much deeper, something much more human than these sensory overload methods can ever achieve. And it's rare. You see, Elden Ring's reward system isn't based on loot, it's not based on chance. The key element that makes the delayed gratification work is that the effort equals the reward. The game recognizes that it's gonna take work to get what you want, and so the reward system is the payoff of your effort. The goal is that the work is done. Now, since you overcame the boss, you can continue the game, and the feeling is so good, but that feeling can only be achieved through challenge and patience. Think about it. If you beat every boss on your first try, would you enjoy the game as much? If there weren't points in the game where you had to go somewhere else and level up, would that journey be as memorable? I don't think so, and here's why. Through enacting challenge and adversity, the game instills an emotional connection within the player. By the boss fights being hard, your body chemically responds to it. It's not a brain-dead activity. Stress begins to rise, your cortisol builds, much more than your regular quotidian levels. That's why these games cause you to rage when you lose in a way that you wouldn't normally enact. Because the brain and the body is so involved with the game, your thoughts are having to juggle all the boss's moveset, what you're capable of, and where to move and how to predict it. You're running all these different calculations that all of your experiences become so amplified. That includes the reward. The dopamine deposit you get from beating a boss in these games is so strong in ways that other games can't achieve, only because the gratification is so delayed, but also so tied to your body's physiology. I mean, how often do you see people reacting like this to other games? The payoff that these games tries to achieve is very similar to the effect people get when working out. On paper, the process of working out sounds like torture. You're purposely subjecting your body to pain and challenge, but you don't get the body you want until years into the process. Despite that, I and a lot of other people are addicted to working out. It's an extreme example of delayed gratification. But now that we understand the reward system of these games, why then was Elden Ring so popular? To answer that question, we need to look at the greater context of the world we live in. Everything we know nowadays is built to satisfy instant gratification. And I mean everything. In the modern society, we go everywhere with our phones. The most efficient instant gratification machine the world has ever seen. Constantly blasting messages and marketing at us, and we fall victim to it every time. But most people are heavily addicted to that feeling. For example, think about this question and I want you to be honest with yourself. Right now, could you put your phone in another room? Could you turn off the TV and be alone with your thoughts for 30 minutes? With no one forcing you, do you think you're physically capable of that? Because most people aren't. Our bodies have a physical and primal need for delayed gratification. And it's that feeling that extremely rarely gets answered. Accomplishing a task that makes you feel proud. How often do you do that? When was the last time you were genuinely excited and jumped for joy because of something you accomplished? Most people can't answer that question, but Elden Ring and the Souls games in general give you such a feeling. And people started to realize this. With Elden Ring being marketed to such a wide audience, more and more people that hardly ever experienced this feeling of delayed gratification finally got a taste of it and realized how sweet it can be. It was something they didn't even realize they wanted. With the Souls games being primarily known for their difficulty, the one thing people didn't know about was the gratification. And once they experienced it, they had to tell everybody. That is why Elden Ring has been such a global phenomenon. The past Souls games achieved the same thing, but they simply didn't reach that unfamiliar audience. And that's why Elden Ring shines so bright in comparison. Now, like I said at the beginning, obviously every other box had to be checked. The game still had to be good and fun, and it was. The journey can still be fun, it doesn't have to be torture. But the payoff has to equal the effort. And with Elden Ring, that is generally more than true. So I hope this video helped you realize how the games capitalize on delayed gratification. It may have been something you weren't even aware of, but I would encourage you to take it a step further. The next time you're about to do an instant gratification activity, find a way to delay it. Go put forth some effort into something and make that activity your reward. You may just find yourself enjoying it a lot more. But guys, that's going to pretty much do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in the next one.